Hello. Right. As you can see, I'm in some very tight gear today. This is essentially MMA gear for those that don't know. Spats. Excuse me. The bottom's a spats, top is a rash guard. I've just been gym. And yeah, feeling like driven to finish the book today because a lot of other stuff I want to talk about. So yeah, I just want to get this smashed out. So less than 10 chapters to go, so we'll see. But yeah, cool. Let's do it. Okay. So we are on chapter 24. Named Will It Be Harder for Me? Okay. There are infinite combinations of factors determining how easily each individual user will quit. To start with, each of us has our own character, career, personal circumstances, timing, metabolism, etc. Certain professions may make it harder than others, but provided the brainwashing is removed, this doesn't have to be so. Take the following few examples. Occasionally, it is difficult for members of the medical profession. We think it should be easier for doctors because they're more aware of the effects, but although this supplies more forceful reasons for stopping, it doesn't make it any easier to accomplish. The reasons are as follows. 1. The constant awareness of the health risks creates fear, one of the conditions under which we feel the need to relieve withdrawal pangs. 2. A doctor's work is exceedingly stressful, and they're usually unable to relieve the additional stress of withdrawal pangs whilst working. 3. They have the additional stress of guilt, feeling that they should be setting an example for the rest of the population. This sets more pressure on them and increases the feeling of deprivation. Yeah, I had that back when I used to help teach Taekwondo. I was actually feeling more stress and responsibility, so when I did fap to porn, I felt so much guilt, shame, and embarrassment, and then you just repeat the cycle, unfortunately. After a hard day at work, when their stress is momentarily relieved by porn, that session becomes incorrectly attached to the relief experienced. Because of this misassociation of ideas, porn gets credit for the whole situation, suddenly becoming very precious upon quitting and going through withdrawal pangs. This is a form of casual user and applies to any situation where the user is forced to abstain for lengthy periods. Under the willpower method, the user is miserable because they're being deprived and not enjoying the tiredness and sleep that comes after a session. Their sense of loss is greatly increased. However, if you can first remove the brainwashing and moping regarding porn, the break and sleep can still be enjoyed even while the body is craving the amine transmitters. I presume that's how you say it. Amine. Serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. Got it right on the first go. And I'm not going to try it again. Another difficult situation is boredom, particularly when combined with periods of stress. Typical examples are students and single parents, work being stressful yet monotonous. Isn't that though? I think that is, for me, that is the fucking worst combination ever. Stressful yet monotonous. Whew! Yeah, I had that. During an attempt to stop on the willpower method, the single person has long periods in which to mope about their loss, which in turn increases feelings of depression. Again, this can be easily overcome if your frame of mind is correct. Don't worry that you're continually reminded that you've stopped porn. Use such moments to rejoice in the fact that you're ridding yourself of the evil monster. If you have a positive frame of mind, these pangs will become moments of pleasure. Remember, any user, regardless of age, sex, intelligence, or profession, can find it easy and enjoyable to stop provided you follow all of the instructions. 24.1 Primary reasons for failure. There are two primary reasons for failure. The first being the influence of external stimuli. Ain't that true? and it's all over the place at the moment, even YouTube. A commercial, online news article, internet browsing, etc., and Snapchat. Snapchat is disgusting for it because like I'm literally hiding, blocking that sort of content, and it just spreads like a virus. So yeah, Snapchat know what they're doing. I really they're messed up, man. I don't respect them at all. Okay. Internet browsing, etc. They find themselves in a weak moment or even become jealous when seeing intimacy in social scenarios. This topic has already been discussed at length. Use the moment to remind yourself there's no such thing as one visit or peak. Rejoice in the fact that you've broken the chain of mental slavery. Remember that the user envies you, and you should feel pity for them, for they need it. The other reason is having a bad day. Get it clear in your mind before you start that whether you're a user or not, you will have good and bad days. It rains for both the Pope and the murderer. Life is relative, and you can't have ups without downs. The issue with the willpower method is that as soon as the user has a bad day, they begin moping for a visit to the harem, which further compounds the issue. The non user is better equipped to handle stresses and strains, not only physically but mentally. If you have a bad day during the withdrawal period, just take it on the chin. Remind yourself that bad days existed when you were addicted, otherwise, you wouldn't have decided to stop in the first place. Instead of moping about it, recognize it instead. Okay, so today's not so good, but porn won't cure it. Tomorrow will be better, and at least I've got a marvellous bonus. I've kicked that awful addiction. I can personally vouch for that, like I haven't that feeling. Um, yeah, I have that exact mindset on a bad day. It's like it will make, objectively, it's going to make me feel worse if I do. So just don't. Tomorrow will be better, and you'll thank yourself for not falling to it and making your bad situation better. When you're a porn user, you have to block your mind to porn's negatives. Users never have brain fog, they're just a bit down. When you're having life's inevitable troubles and you experience the thought of wanting porn, are you happy and cheerful? Of course you aren't. Once you stop, the tendency is blaming everything that goes wrong on the fact you've stopped. If work stresses you out, you think, at times like this, I would have had a session. This is true, but the important thing that's forgotten is that porn didn't solve the problem, and you're simply punishing yourself by moping for illusory crutches. You're creating an impossible situation. Miserable because you can't masturbate to porn, yet you'll be even more miserable if you do. You know that you've made the correct decision by stopping it, so why punish yourself by doubting your decision? Remember, a positive mental approach is essential, always. Chapter 25 Substitutes. Some examples of substitutes include restricting to porn magazines, static internet images, porn diets, etc. Do not use any of them. They make it harder, not easier. If you do get a pang and use a substitute, it will just prolong the pang, making it harder. What you're really saying is that you need porn to fill the void. It will be like giving in to a hijacker or a child's tantrum, just keeping the pangs coming and prolonging torture. In any event, the substitutes won't relieve the pangs. Your craving is for certain neurotransmitters in the brain, and all it will do is keep you thinking about porn. Remember these points. Number one, there's no substitute for porn. Number two, you don't need porn. It's not food, it's poison. When the pangs come, remind yourself that it's users who suffer withdrawal pangs, not non-users. See them for what they are, another evil of the drug. See them as the death of a monster. Number three, internet porn creates the void, it doesn't fill it. The quicker you teach your brain that you don't need to watch, the sooner you'll be free. In particular, avoid anything that resembles porn, such as men's magazines, movies, romance novels, and commercials. This isn't being closed-minded. It's okay to talk romance and sex, but not porn. There is always a way to find when and where to discriminate. It's true that a small proportion of users who attempt to quit using soft porn or porn diets do succeed from their own perspectives and attribute their successes to such use. However, they quit in spite of their use and not because of it. It's unfortunate that many still recommend these measures. This is unsurprising because if you don't fully understand the porn trap, a diet or soft substitute sounds very logical. It's based on the belief that when you attempt to quit porn, you have two powerful enemies to defeat: breaking the habit and surviving terrible physical withdrawal pangs. If you have two enemies to defeat, it's sensible to not fight them simultaneously, but one at a time. So the theory goes that when you first stop using porn, you cut down to once a week or use safe porn. Then once the habit is broken, gradually reduce the supply, thus tackling each enemy separately. This sounds very logical, but is based on incorrect information. Porn isn't habit but dopamine addiction, and the actual physical pain from withdrawal is almost imperceptible. What you're trying to achieve when quitting is killing both the monsters in your body and brain as quickly as possible. All substitution techniques do is prolong the little monster's life, and in turn this prolongs the brainwashing. Easy Peasy makes it easy to quit immediately, killing the brainwashing before your final session. The little monster will soon be dead, and even whilst it's dying, it will be no more of a problem than it was when you were a user. Just think, how can you possibly cure addiction to a drug through recommending the same drug? There are many stories online about those who've quit using hardcore internet porn but are hooked on safe alternatives, having fallen for their little monster's justifications. Don't be fooled by the fact that the safe porn isn't awful. So was that first high-speed clip. All substitutes have exactly the same effects as any porn. Some even begin eating, but although the empty feeling of wanting a session is indistinguishable from hunger for food, one won't satisfy the other. In fact, if there's anything that's designed to make you want porn, it's stuffing yourself with food. As previously explained, porn diets and safe porn will only put you in the middle of the tug-of-war, with resistance to temptation being so annoying that you'll feel relieved visiting your favourite online harem. The chief evil of substitutes is prolonging the real problem: brainwashing. Do you need a substitute for when the fluid's over? Of course you don't. By saying you need a substitute for porn, what you're really saying is that you're making a sacrifice. The depression associated with the willpower method is caused by the fact that the user believes they're making a sacrifice. All you'll be doing is substituting one problem for another. There's no pleasure in stuffing yourself with food, cigarettes, or alcohol. You'll just get fat, miserable, and in no time at all you'll be back on the drug. Casual users find it difficult to dismiss the belief that they're being deprived of their little reward, like those who aren't allowed to go online during a period of time during travel, a family event, etc. Some say, I wouldn't know how to unwind if it weren't for porn. That proves the point. Often the break is taken not because the user needs or even wants it, but because the addict, which is what they are, desperately needs to scratch the itch. Remember, the porn sessions were never genuine rewards. They are equivalent to wearing tight shoes in order to feel the pleasure of taking them off. So if you feel that you must have a little reward, let that be your substitute. Whilst you're working, wear your shoes or underwear a size too small, and don't allow yourself to remove them until you have your break. Then experience the wonderful moment of relaxation and satisfaction when they're removed. Perhaps you feel that would be rather stupid. You're absolutely correct. It can be difficult to visualize while still in the trap, but that is what users do. It's also hard to visualize that soon you won't need that little reward, and that you'll soon regard friends who are still in the trap with genuine pity and wonder why they cannot see the point. However, if you continue kidding yourself that the online harem visit was a genuine reward, or that you need a substitute, you'll feel deprived and miserable. The chances are that you'll end up falling into the disgusting trap again. If you need a genuine break, as housewives, teachers, doctors, and other workers do, you'll soon be enjoying that break even more, because you won't have to addict yourself. Remember that you don't need a substitute. The pangs are a craving for dopamine and will soon be gone. Let that be your prop for the next few days and enjoy ridding your body and mind of slavery and dependence. Chapter 26. Should I avoid temptation situations? The advice has been direct so far and has asked you to treat it as instruction rather than suggestion. There are sound, practical reasons for this advice, and those reasons have been backed up by thousands of case studies. On the question of whether or not to try and avoid temptation, this isn't the case. Each user will need to decide for themselves. However, two helpful suggestions can be made to assist you through this process. It's fear of future withdrawal pangs that keeps us using porn for the remainder of our lives, and this fear consists of two distinct phases. Phase 1. How can I survive without porn? The fear is the panicky feeling the user gets when they're single or have an asexual, uninterested, or unavailable partner. The fear isn't caused by withdrawal pangs, but is the psychological fear of dependency, of being unable to survive without sex and orgasm. It peaks when on the verge of quitting, when your withdrawal pangs are at their lowest. It's the fear of the unknown, the sort of fear that people have when they're learning to dive. The diving board is 1 foot high but appears to be 6 feet high. The water is 6 feet deep but appears to be 1 foot deep. It takes courage to launch yourself, convinced you're going to smash your head. The launching is the hardest part. If you find the courage to do it, the rest is easy. This explains why many strong-willed users have never attempted to stop, or can survive for only a few days when they do. In fact, there are some users on porn diets who, upon deciding to stop, actually binge and escalate to harsher clips more quickly than if they hadn't decided to stop. The decision causes panic, which is stressful and triggers a cue to take a trip to the harem. But now you can't have one, leading to thoughts of deprivation, compounding stress. The trigger activates quickly when the fuse blows and you fire up the browser. Don't worry, the panic isn't just psychological, it's the fear that you're dependent. The beautiful truth is that you're not, even when still addicted. Don't panic and launch yourself. Phase 2. Longer term fear. The second phase is long term, involving fear that certain situations in the future won't be enjoyable or you won't be able to cope with trauma without porn. Don't worry, if you can launch yourself, you'll find the opposite to be the case. The avoidance of temptation itself falls into 2 categories. Number 1, I'll subscribe to a porn diet of once in 4 days. I'll feel more confident knowing if I can go online if it gets difficult. If I fail, it's okay. I'll just add additional days to my next cycle. The failure rate with people doing this is far higher than those quitting altogether. This is mainly due to the fact that if you're having a bad moment during the withdrawal period, it's easy to hop on the browser and visit the harem with the above excuses. If you have the indignity of clearly breaking your own rules like a shattered glass window, you're more likely to overcome the temptation. In any event, the pang would probably have passed if you delayed it. However, the main reason for the high failure rate in these cases is that the user didn't feel completely committed to stopping in the first place. Remember, the 2 essentials to succeed are certainty, isn't it marvellous that I don't need porn anymore? In either case, why on earth do you need a session? If you still need to visit your harem, reread the book first. Something hasn't quite gelled. Take the time to kill the big brainwashing monster in your mind stone dead. Number 2. Should I avoid stressful or social occasions during the withdrawal period? In the case of stressful situations, yes, there's no sense putting undue pressure on yourself. In the case of social events like bars or clubs, the advice is the reverse. Go out and enjoy yourself straight away. You don't need sex or the propagative side of sex even whilst you're addicted to porn. Go out and rejoice in the fact that you don't have to have sex or propagative sex. It will quickly prove to you the beautiful truth that life is so much better without these pressures. Just think of how much better it will be when the little monster has left you, together with those needy thoughts. Chapter 27, The Moment of Revelation. Usually within 3 weeks post-escape, ex-users experience the moment of revelation. The sky appears to become brighter, and it's the moment when the brainwashing ends completely. When instead of telling yourself that you don't need to watch porn, you suddenly realise that the last thread is broken, you enjoy the rest of your life without ever needing it again. It's also from this point that you usually start looking at users as objects of pity. Quitting using the willpower method doesn't normally experience this moment because they are glad to be ex-users, but they continue moving through life believing they're making a sacrifice. The more you were addicted, the more marvellous this moment is, and it lasts a lifetime. While there are many joys in life, it's impossible to recapture the actual feeling of experiencing them. The joy of not having to watch porn anymore is different. If feeling low and needing a boost, remind yourself of how lovely it is not to be hooked on that awful addiction. Many list it as one of the greatest events of their lives. In most cases, the moment of revelation takes place not after 3 weeks, but after a few days. In my own case, it happened before finishing my last harem visit. I'm sure many of the readers here, before they'd even got to the end of the chapters, would say something like, "You needn't say another word. I can see it all so clearly. I know I'll never need porn again." Based on the feedback received, this happens frequently. Ideally, if you follow all the instructions and understand the psychology completely, it should happen to you immediately. Whilst it's stated that it takes around 5 days for the noticeable physical withdrawals to go, about 3 weeks for an ex-user to get completely free, such guidelines can cause two problems. The first being that the suggestion is implanted in people's minds that they'll have to suffer for between 5 days and 3 weeks. The second is that the ex-user tends to think, if I can survive for 5 days or 3 weeks, I can expect a real boost at the end of that period. However, they may have 5 pleasant days or 3 pleasant weeks, then followed by disastrous days that strike everyone, which have nothing to do with the addiction but are caused by other factors in our lives. Then our ex-user who's waiting for the moment of revelation experiences depression instead. It could destroy their confidence. By the same token, if there were no guidelines, the ex-user could spend the rest of their lives waiting for nothing to happen. This is what happens to the vast majority of those who stop using the willpower method. People often ask about the significance of the 5 days and 3 weeks. Are they just periods drawn out of the blue? No. Whilst they aren't definite dates, they reflect an accumulation of feedback from over the years. About 5 days after stopping is when the ex-user ceases to have the addiction as the main occupation of their mind. Most ex-users experience revelation around this period, generally in stressful or social situations that at one point they weren't able to cope with or weren't enjoyable without a harem visit. You suddenly realise that not only are you enjoying or coping with it, but the thought of porn has never even occurred to you. From that point, it's usually plain sailing. That's when you know you're free. It's both mine and the experience of many others attempting to stop using the willpower method that around the 3 week period is when most serious attempts to stop fail. What usually happens is that after about 3 weeks you sense you've lost the desire to watch porn. You need to prove this to yourself, so you hop on the browser to visit your harem. It feels weird proving that you've kicked it, but in the process, you've actually greased the Delta Fosby water slide thanks to the fresh dopamine rush, what your body has been craving for the last 3 weeks. As soon as you finish the deed, the dopamine starts to leave your body. A little voice reappears. You haven't kicked it, you want another one. You don't scurry back right away because you don't want to get hooked again, allowing a safe period to pass. When you're next tempted, you'll say to yourself, well, I didn't get hooked again, so there's no harm in having another one. You're already on your way down the slippery slope. The key to the problem isn't waiting for the moment of revelation, but to realise that once you close the browser, it's finished. You've cut off the supply of oxygen to your little monster. No force on earth can prevent you from being free, unless you mope about it or wait for revelation. Go and enjoy life. Cope with it right from the start. The moment will soon arrive. Chapter 28. The final visit. Having decided on timing, you're now ready to visit your harem one last time. Before you do so, check on the 2 essentials. Number 1, do you feel certain of success? Number 2, do you have a feeling of doom and gloom or a sense of excitement that you're about to achieve something marvellous? If you have any doubts, reread the book first. Remember that you never decided to fall into the porn trap, but the trap is designed to enslave you for life. In order to escape, you need to make the positive decision that you're about to stop and to make your final visit. Remember, the only reason you've read this book so far is because you dearly love to escape. So make that positive decision now, making a solemn vow that when you close your private browser window, whether finding it easy or difficult, you'll never visit your harem again. Perhaps you're worried that you've made this vow several times in the past and are still failing, or that you'll have to go through awful trauma. Have no fear. The worst thing that can possibly happen is that you fail, so therefore you have absolutely nothing to lose and so much to gain. But stop even thinking about failure. The beautiful truth is that it's not only ridiculously easy to quit, you can actually enjoy the process. This time you're going to use Easy Peasy. All you need to do is follow the simple instructions about to be given. Number 1, make the solemn vow now and mean it. Number 2, browse the pictures and clips on your favourite tube site consciously, looking at the desperate attempts by the site administrators, actors, and even amateurs to amplify the shock, novelty, and supernormal nature of their wares, and ask yourself where the pleasure is. Number 3, when you finally close the browser, don't do so with a feeling of I must never visit another online harem again, or I'm not allowed to visit another, but instead with a feeling of freedom, like, isn't it great? I'm free. I'm no longer a slave to porn. I don't ever have to visit those filthy sites in my life again. Number 4, be aware that for a few days there will be a little porn saboteur inside your stomach. You might only be aware of the feeling of wanting a session. The little porn monster has been referred to as the slight physical craving for dopamine. Strictly speaking, this is incorrect, and it's important to understand why. Because it takes up to 3 weeks for that little monster to die, ex-users believe the little monster will continue to crave after the final online harem visit, and therefore they must use willpower to resist the temptation during this period. This isn't so. The body doesn't crave porn-triggered dopamine, only the brain craves. If you do get that feeling of wanting a peak for the next few days, your brain has a simple choice. You can either interpret that feeling for what it actually is, an empty, insecure feeling started by the first visit to an online porn site and further perpetuated by each subsequent visit, and saying to yourself, yippee, I'm a non-user. Or you can start craving for porn and suffer for the remainder of your life. Just think for a moment, wouldn't that be incredibly stupid? I never want to watch porn again, and then spending the rest of your life saying I'd love a visit. That's what those who use the willpower method do, and it's no wonder they feel so miserable, spending the rest of their lives desperately moping for something they desperately hope they'll never have. No wonder that so few succeed, and the few that do never feel completely free. Get this mental picture clearly in your mind, for it can be quite helpful in overcoming the power of external stimuli to disturb you. See yourself sitting quietly, letting the phone ring, ignoring its signal, unmoved by its command. Although you're aware of it, you no longer mind or obey it. Also, get clearly in your mind the fact that the outside signal in itself has no power over you, no power to move you. In the past, you have obeyed it, responded to it purely out of habit. You can, if you wish, form a new habit of not responding. Also notice that your failure to respond does not consist in doing something, or making an effort, or resisting or fighting, but in doing nothing, in relaxation from doing. You merely relax, ignore the signal, and let its summons go unheeded. The telephone ringing is a symbolic analogy to any and every other outside stimulus you might habitually give control over to, and now choose to very intentionally alter this habit. And that's by Maxwell Maltz, The New Psycho-Cybernetics, Chapter 12. Essentially, it's mindfulness, isn't it? Objectively looking at the external stimuli for what it is, not you're detached from it. It's only doubting and waiting that makes it difficult to quit. So never doubt your decision because you know it's the correct one. If you begin to doubt it, you'll put yourself in a no-win situation. Miserable whilst craving a visit, but unable to have one. No matter what system you're using, what are you trying to achieve when quitting porn? Never to watch it again? No, many ex-users do that, but go through the rest of their lives feeling deprived. What's the difference between users and non-users? Non-users haven't any need nor desire to watch porn. They're without craving and don't need to exercise willpower in order to watch it. That's what you're trying to achieve, and it's completely within your power to do so. You don't have to wait to stop craving porn or becoming a non-user. It's completed the moment you close that final browser window, cutting off the supply of dopamine. You are already a happy non-user. You'll remain a happy non-user provided, number 1, you never doubt your decision. Number 2, you don't have You don't wait to become a non-user. If you do, you'll be merely waiting for nothing to happen and creating a phobia. Number 3, you don't try not to think about porn or wait for the moment of revelation to come, creating a phobia. Number 4, you don't use substitutes. Number 5, you see all the other users as they really are and pity them rather than envying them. Whether there are good or bad days, don't change your life just because you've quit. If you do, you'll be making a genuine sacrifice when there's no need to. Remember, you haven't given up living, you haven't given up anything. On the contrary, you've cured yourself from an awful disease and escaped from an insidious prison. As days pass and your health, both physically and mentally, improves, the highs will appear higher and the lows less low than when you were a user. Whenever you think about porn during the next few days or the rest of your life, think, yippee! I'm a non-user. Chapter 28.1, a final warning. No user, if given the chance of going back to the time before they became hooked, with the knowledge they have now, would opt to start. Tens of thousands who successfully kick the habit for many years lead perfectly happy lives only to get trapped once again. I trust this book will help you to find it relatively easy to stop, but be warned, users who find it easy to stop find it just as easy to start again. Do not fall for this trap. No matter how long you've stopped for, or how confident you are never going to become hooked again, make it a rule for life not to watch porn for any reason. Resist the illusions and innuendos in the media, and remember how they're pushing their image of openness by bringing porn into the mainstream. Unaware that porn and compulsive masturbation are killers of relationships and marriages, and the personal sense of well-being for a huge number of men and increasing numbers of porn. And just a quick point, it's a dark subject, but it's definitely important, is that company I've mentioned before, they're called Fight the New Drug. They do interviews and videos with people that have like broke clean from the addiction, and they talk about how they were like genuinely suicidal over it. You know what I mean? Like, that's how serious it is of a drug addiction. So unaware that porn consumption has killers of relationships and the personal sense of well-being for a huge number of men and increasing numbers of women. Remember that the first peak or visit will do nothing for you. You'll have no withdrawal pangs to relieve, and it will make you feel awful. What it will do is put the pleasure of the dopamine rush back into your mind and brain, and a little voice at the back of your mind will be telling you that you want another one. Then you've got the choice of being miserable for a while or starting the whole filthy chain over again. Chapter 29, Feedback. The war isn't against users, but the porn industry, and it's waged for the simple reason that I enjoy waging it. Every time I hear about a user escaping from the prison, I get a feeling of immense pleasure, but this pleasure hasn't been without considerable frustration, mainly caused by two categories of porn users. In spite of the warning in the previous chapter, I'm continually surprised by the number of those who find it easy to stop, yet later get hooked and find they can't succeed the next time. It's like finding someone up to their neck in a swamp and about to go in there. You help pull them out and they're grateful, but then 6 months later dive straight back into that very swamp. Users who find it easy to stop and start again pose a special problem. However, when you get free, please don't make the same mistake. They believe such people start again because they're still hooked and are missing the dopamine. In fact, they find stopping so easy that they lose their fear of porn. They think, I can have an odd session, and even if I do get hooked again, I'll find it easy to stop. I'm afraid it just doesn't work that way, because it's easy to stop porn, but it's impossible to control the addiction. The one thing essential to stopping porn is not using it. People usually come back to porn because they misunderstand the easy in easy peasy. Imagine someone sitting on the cold concrete floor of a freezing room. On the wall opposite to them, there's a window showing a perfect spring day outside. Trees gently swaying, birds chirping, right next to an unlocked door. Does it take any willpower getting out of that freezing room? No. Is escaping any harder than staying? Of course not. In fact, it's a little easier because of the body moving. Why would anyone in their right mind put themselves in such a situation, causing themselves months or years of frustration unless they were tricked? Easy Peasy pushes aside curtains so the user can see outside clearly and to remove delusions about how terrible outside can be and how comfortable the user is in the room. The other category of frustrating users are those too frightened to make the attempt to stop, or when they do, find it a great struggle. The main difficulties appear to be the following. Fear of failure. There's no disgrace in failure, but not trying is plain stupidity. Look at it this way, you're hiding from nothing. The worst thing that can happen is that you fail, in which case you are no worse off than you are now. Just think how wonderful it would be if you succeed. If you don't make the attempt, you're already guaranteed failure. Fear of pain and being miserable. Don't worry about it. Just think, what awful thing could happen to you if you never watch porn again? Nothing. Terrible things will happen to you if you do. Reread the notes on Pascal's wager. In any case, the panic is caused by dopamine and will soon be gone. The greatest gain is getting rid of that fear. Do you really believe that users are prepared to have fading penetrations, unreliable sexual performance, or the illusory pleasure that you get from porn? If you find yourself getting panicky, deep breathing will help. If you're with other people and they're getting you down, escape from them and go to the garage, an empty office, or somewhere. If you feel like crying, don't be ashamed. Crying is nature's way of relieving tension. No one has ever had a good cry without feeling better afterwards. One of the awful things we do to young men is conditioning them not to cry. You can see them trying to fight back the tears, but watch the jaw grinding away. We teach ourselves not to show emotion, but we're not meant to bottle them up inside. Scream, shout, or have a tantrum. Kick something. Hit a heavy bag. Regard your struggle as a boxing match that you cannot lose. Nobody can stop time. Every moment that passes, that little monster inside you is dying. Enjoy your inevitable victory. Not following the instructions. Incredibly, some users say that the method didn't work for them. They then describe how they ignored not only one instruction but practically all of them. For clarity, these are summarized as a checklist at the end of this chapter. Misunderstanding instructions. The chief problem appears to be these. I can't stop thinking about porn. Of course you can, and if you try, you'll create a phobia, becoming miserable. It's like trying to get to sleep at night. The more you try, the harder it becomes. It doesn't matter if you think about porn for 90% of your life. It's what you're thinking that's important. If you're thinking, oh, I love to look at porn, or when will I be free, you'll be miserable. If you're instead thinking, yippee, I'm free, you'll be happy. When will the little poor monster die? The dopamine flush leaves your body very rapidly, but it's impossible to tell when your body will cease suffering from the slight physical sensation of dopamine withdrawal. That empty, insecure feeling is identical to normal hunger, depression, or stress. All porn does is increase the level of it. This is why users who stop using the willpower method are never quite sure if they've kicked it, even after their bodies have ceased suffering dopamine withdrawal. If suffering normal hunger or stress, their brain is still telling them this is a valid reason to claim their entitled session. The point being that you don't have to wait for the craving to go, since it's so slight that we don't even know it's there, only knowing it as a feeling of wanting. When you leave the dentist, do you wait for your jaw to stop aching? Of course you don't, you get on with life. Even though your jaw's still aching, you're related. Don't wait for withdrawals to leave, because you'll create doubt by constantly asking yourself, how long will this take? Am I even free if I don't feel any different? Fear is the actual pang. Therefore, waiting for life to get better after quitting will create doubt. Withdrawal is imperceptible unless you fear it. And the exponential improvements to neurology are slow. So if you wait to feel different, it'll feel like nothing is happening, creating doubt. The moment of revelation hasn't arrived yet. If you wait for it, you're just causing another phobia. I once stopped for 3 weeks on the willpower method. Chatting with an old friend, he asked me how I was getting on. I've survived 3 weeks, I replied. He queried, what do you mean you've survived 3 weeks? I clarified, I've gone 3 weeks without porn. He said, what are you going to do, survive the rest of your life? What are you waiting for? You've done it. You're a non-user. I thought, he's absolutely right. What am I waiting for? Unfortunately, due to lack of understanding of the porn trap, I was soon back in, but the point was noted. You become a non-user when closing your browser. The important thing is to be a happy non-user from the start. I'm still craving porn. Then you're being very stupid. How can you claim you want to be a non-user and then say that you want porn? That's a contradiction. If you say that you want porn, you're saying you want to be a user. Non-users don't want to visit the disgusting tube sites. You already know what you want to be, so stop punishing yourself. I've opted out of life. Why? All you have to do is stop killing yourself and start energizing again. You don't have to stop living in the slightest. It's as simple as this. For the next couple of days, you'll have a slight trauma in your life. Your body will suffer an almost imperceptible aggravation of withdrawal from demands and claims for a dopamine surge. Now bear this in mind, you're no worse off than you were. This is what you've been suffering for the whole of your life. Every time you've been asleep, in church, the supermarket or library, it didn't seem to bother you whilst you were a user, and if you don't stop, you'll go on suffering that distress for the rest of your life. Porn and orgasms don't make occasions, they deprive you of them. Even whilst your body is still craving dopamine, meals and social occasions are marvellous. Life is marvellous. Go to social functions even if there are naked dancers there. Remember that you're not being deprived, they are. Every single one of them would love to be in your position if only they knew. Enjoy being the prima donna and centre of attention. Stopping porn is a wonderful conversation point, taking a secret pleasure they cannot. Your friends and peers will be surprised to see that you, formerly shying and tired looking, are now happy and cheerful. You'll be enjoying life right from the start. There's no need to There's no need to envy pickup artists at parties. They'll be envying you if only they knew. I'm miserable and irritable. This is a failure to follow instructions. Find out which one it is. Some people understand and believe everything written, but will start off with a feeling of doom and gloom, as if something terrible was happening. You're not only doing what you'd like to do, but what every user on the planet would like to do. With any method of stopping, the ex-user is trying to achieve a certain frame of mind, so every porn-related thought is punctuated by, "Yippee, I'm free!" If that's your objective, why wait? Start off in that frame of mind and never lose it. There's no alternative. I had a good week, month, 6 months, but I'm back in the trap. Remember, fear is the pang itself. Giving into a pang generates more fear, feeding the weakened little monster and succeeding in spooking the non-user into thinking they're hooked for life. In reality, their conceptualization of the brainwashing hasn't changed, but they've given dopamine to the thought process. This is by definition falling forward, but is a failure to follow instructions. Understand which one below and rejoice. Chapter 29.1, the checklist. If you follow these instructions, you cannot fail. Number 1, make a solemn vow that you'll never, ever go online to visit the harem or set up static pictures or make peace with erotic graphics or anything that contains supernormal stimuli, and stick to your vow. Number 2, get this clear in your mind. There's absolutely nothing to give up. By that, it isn't meant that you will be better off as a non-PMOer. You've known this all along. Nor that although there is no rational reasons why you PMO, you get some pleasure or crutch from it, since otherwise you wouldn't do it. What's meant is there's no genuine pleasure or crutch in PMOing. It's just an illusion, like banging your head against the wall to get pleasure when you stop. Number 3, there's no such thing as a confirmed PMOer. You're just one of the hundreds of millions who've fallen for the subtle trap. Like the millions of other ex-PMOers who once thought they couldn't escape, you've escaped. Number 4, if at any time in your life you were to weigh up the pros and cons of PMOing, the overwhelming conclusion would always be, stop doing it, you're a fool. Nothing's going to change that. It's always been that way, it always will be that way. Having made what you know to be the correct decision, don't ever torture yourself by doubting yourself. Pascal wages perfectly applies to PMO, with 0 chance of loss, massive chances of gains, and high chances of avoiding losses. Number 5, don't try not to think about porn or worry that you're thinking about it constantly. Whenever you do, think about it, whether today, tomorrow, or the rest of your life. Think, yippee, I'm a non-PMO. Number 6, do not use any form of substitute. Do not challenge yourself by keeping your laptop next to you whilst you sleep. Do not avoid plays, movies, or magazines. Do not change your lifestyle in any way purely because you've stopped. If you follow the above instructions, you'll soon experience the moment of revelation. But number 7, don't wait for the moment of revelation to come. Just get on with your life, enjoying the highs and coping with the lows. You'll find in no time at all the moment will arrive. Okay, chapter 30. Help those on the sinking ship. Oh, I'm tired, man. Okay. I'm so tempted to come back to the rest, but I'm so close to the end. Oh, I might have to come back to one last point. This has been 45 minutes of out loud reading. Yeah, but I might do it later. If not, I'll get this done tomorrow. Peace and love, stay strong, keep learning, keep growing.